Hi, I'm Jim Goddin, Head of Circular Economy at thinkstep-anz. I've been working on the circular economy for the past decade, and for most of it I've had the great pleasure of working alongside the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and their partners. This week sees the return of one of my favourite circular economy events, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's annual summit. Now, pre-COVID, this was traditionally a one-day event held at the Roundhouse in London, which is a great historic venue. But this year, of course, we're attending virtually over the space of 3 days. Here's my highlights from day one, which focused on fixing the economy and fixing the climate. Do join me again tomorrow and on Thursday for my coverage of days 2 and 3. Now, first up, we heard from Dame Ellen MacArthur herself in conversation with Christiana Figueres, the former Executive Secretary of UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, that was so instrumental in the negotiation of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change back in 2016. As we look forward to COP26 in Glasgow later this year, there was a reflection on the mammoth achievement in negotiating the Paris Agreement in the first place. There was also a recognition that although low-carbon energy is a large part of the picture, around half of the change that is needed is to do with how we make, use and consume products. The message that really stood out for me is that even with the Paris Agreement, we're still trapped in the linear mindset. That we're not asking the follow-up question to climate action, which is, and then what? Even with the efforts that we're now starting to see on climate action, we're in danger of creating a whole pile of new problems for our future selves by not designing for circularity. And this is not just for manufactured goods. Around 30% of the problem and the solution is associated with land use. We need to be focused on correcting the natural cycles that have driven carbon into the soil in the past, and it was clear from Christiana that the circularity of carbon is a core component of the solution we need. We then heard from the founder of Renature, Philippe, on how climate change is increasing pressure on farmers, how pesticides are becoming less effective, and the opportunities from adopting the regenerative approach that is such an integral part of the circular economy. Philippe discussed how farmers and retailers are now starting to consider the environmental impacts and supply chain risks associated with synthetic fertilizers, and from the loss of productivity as a result of soil degradation. We were treated to 2 great examples of syntropic agroforestry in Kenya, which highlighted how a shift to a circular bioeconomy can significantly improve soil health, replenish the microorganisms lost through conventional farming, and enhance both resilience and productivity. Regenerative production is one of those components of a circular economy that even today isn't clearly defined. Regenerative means different things in different locations, and it's clear that we'll need to see a change in mindset, away from a one-size-fits-all approach and towards something that is mindful of the specifics of the individual location. The great news for me was that customers are starting to demand this, and that retailers are incorporating regenerative circular agriculture as part of their ESG strategies. Proof of concept projects like the ones we saw in Kenya are now starting to be expanded as confidence improves. These projects are being stimulated by offtake agreements that can sometimes be 20% higher than typical prices, and by a recognition of ecosystem services as a way of sequestering carbon, an income that many farmers never expected to see. We heard from 2 of the larger Ellen MacArthur Foundation partners, Nestle and Unilever, about how they're recognizing that they can't wait around for others to move first, as this is a recipe for nothing to happen. How they're stimulating regenerative agriculture through activities such as cost sharing for cover crops and reforestation within their supply chains as part of increasing their supply chain resilience. For me, the interesting takeaway was the recognition that regenerative agriculture is likely to require an increase in the diversity of the food we eat, and that the GNOR report with the WWF has identified 50 more foods that we need to eat more of, including more sustainable forms of protein. Finally, we heard from Erin Billman, the Executive Director of Science-Based Targets Network, and Jarko Havas at the Foundation on the subject of data and metrics for the circular economy, something that I've worked on extensively over the past 10 years with the Foundation. In today's session, the focus was on the importance of data to measure impact, set baselines, and to drive change. We heard about the current work on nature-based targets to sit alongside science-based targets, and how strongly these are linked. As Erin says, we can't stop climate change without preventing the loss of biodiversity and ecosystems. For me, the final takeaway from the session was that both climate change and the loss of natural capital represent significant supply chain risks, and that we need to address both to hit our climate change targets. It's clear that a focus on the circular economy and systems, and importantly circular design, are going to be key, and that the appetite for systemic change is growing significantly now. Join me tomorrow for day 2, and I'll look forward to seeing you there.